Oh, yes. And just like that said the cat, the Crime Solver Show is back for another week. It is yours truly, the Moth, the man of the hour himself, Elwood Baldwin Jr. here with my partner in crime,
the other guy, also known as Ron Coombs,
a.k.a. Glass, and we have the conductor himself on the ones and twos.
Yesterday's news. Chris Rizzuti.
I like it. Now, did you do that on purpose? Was that a rhyme? Did we do that on purpose? I mean,
it worked out like that.
Or did we just call that chemistry?
I think it's one of those things when you worked long enough with somebody, you know what they're thinking. So
That's right.
that's what happened right there.
I like it. I like it. Whatever it was.
It was good. It was
liked
good.
it.
So this week for the Crime Solver Show, we have a topic that I am very excited to discuss, and that is kind of how law enforcement has changed over the last 30 years. And to discuss that, we have the veteran himself, Ron Coombs. We can discuss that with him. He's been in law enforcement for over 30 years in some shape, form, or fashion, starting off as an officer here in Chesterfield back in 87, 88. And then, of course, as a supervisor, and now as a retired police officer back with the police department, helping out crime solvers on a part-time basis. So the things that we want to get into, Ron, is kind of the beginning process of this for you as far as, you know, applying what that was like. But the big topic of discussion for the first segment, of course, is equipment.
Right.
Then we want to move into technology. And then for our last segment, we'll talk about police and media relations.
Right.
And how that has changed over the last 30 years. So talk to us a little bit about what it was like for you in the beginning, putting in for law enforcement here in Chesterfield.
Well, when I first put it, I basically found the Chesterfield County Police Department from an ad in the Washington Post. I was living up in Maryland. I just got out of the military and was looking for like a law enforcement job somewhere. So I'd seen Chesterfield as I drove up and down 95. You drive right through it. So I'd seen it before, filled out my application, sent it in, got invited down to take a test. We did our test at Byrd High School. I want to say there was probably 700-800 people there. I know somebody that is going to hear this from my academy and say, "Oh, there was 2,000 people there." I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people there. Let's put it. We filled the cafeteria up. I know that much at least. So I don't know how many people that is, but we filled the cafeteria up. We took a written test. If you passed the written test, they let you take the physical test, and if you passed both of those, they gave you your background packet. You filled that out, and then they started doing interviews and doing your background. And I think that was right around June sometime, and then in October we started the academy. So academy started in October, ended in March. So it's close to what it is now. I think these guys go a little bit longer.
Right.
There's probably some more topics that they covered that we didn't cover in the day, and
Yeah.
things that are a little bit different. There's a lot more classes on communication, de-escalation, things of that nature that that have evolved with law enforcement.
Right.
So it's a little bit different than it was. The academy is a little different. Our academy now, for those that don't know or don't, our academy is going constantly. There's
Yes.
classes of all types, not just basic academies, but in-service academies and just just general classes on things. Law enforcement changes with everything else, so
Yeah.
there's classes constantly available over at our academy. Back when I was going there, they had the basic academy and you had in-service. Once everybody went once for a week every year. And everybody, week was different, of course, but that was pretty much it. Then they, as we grew, of course, the academy grew and the building grew. But that was, when I first came here, Chesterfield's population was right around 210,000, I believe it was. Now we're up to 350.
Yep, and still growing.
And growing like crazy. If you go down any of the roads, you see all the houses being built. So
Exactly.
we had, our unit number went up to 249. That means the greatest number of officers we would have had at that time was 249. I don't think we had all the numbers filled. So,
Right.
And now we're well over 500. So,
535.
we've doubled, in size, and the county's, almost doubled in size. So it's things have changed a little bit as far as the county itself and everything else too.
So real quick, when you applied and you guys are at LC Byrd, there's 800 plus people in the gym.
Right.
Did you guys know how many jobs were available at all? Or?
No, they didn't. I don't believe they told us how many were going to be available.
Yeah.
We ended up, I believe, our academy started with 30, and we
Okay.
graduated like 28. So
Okay.
we had like 30 people in my academy for the first time. So they didn't tell us, here's how many we plan to hire. Or this, we just kind of took it and went from there. So.
And all of this from a newspaper in the Washington Post.
Yep,
Like,
just under law enforcement or police or something. I saw it and I was like,
That's
I'll send it. I'll call. You had to call.
Yeah.
You call them and you call the number and ask them to send you an application. They put it in the mail. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, that's a thing that you put an envelope in and you seal it and you send it off and it comes in your mailbox. So it's kind of neat, a little bit different than we do things now, recruiting wise and things of that nature. So it's a little different. It's not as in your face type of constantly, that many people at a test is kind of unheard of today.
Right.
I mean, they do tests all the time for however many people they're going to do it for. So that's quite a large group.
Right. Yeah. Our recruiting, they do a great job, but I don't know if I've ever seen 700 or 800 people here at one time.
Oh, absolutely not. No. You like I said, but back then it was we're shooting for this class and they advertised and then that was the end of it. Here we constantly advertise because there's so much more people. When they did that, they hired us starting in the 70s all the way up, through the 80s all the way up through the 90s. There were big classes like that. Well, guys like us now, we're getting to the retirement age. So those guys start leaving, and we've got to replace all those guys. So, the people that were hired from the late 80s up to 2000s were a lot of big classes and a lot of groups, and all those guys are getting retirement eligible now. So. Yeah.
Okay, so then let's move into equipment. What was equipment like for you guys, especially starting off, and then kind of talk about how that's changed over the years to kind of now?
Yeah, the equipment is, we had a take-home car like we have now. That's pretty much the same. Our firearm at the time was a Smith & Wesson revolver, 38 caliber. So you had 6 rounds in that, and you had 2 either speed loaders or 2 speed strips. So you had a grand total of 18 rounds, which I believe our pistol now holds just by itself without any.
Right.
So all you had on you at the time was that many rounds, and we had a wooden baton, and that was pretty much it as far as weapons, as far as taking someone into custody or things of that nature. Your handcuffs, of course. We had handcuffs, but we had no pepper spray at the time. We had no taser, anything like that at the time. So that was kind of things that evolved. I eventually had the pepper spray that came in the mid '90s. We went to pepper spray, and then we went on further. Right before I retired, everybody was getting a taser. So when we first started, though, very bare minimum. You had the hands-on technique, and that was pretty much it. And then you went to you had a nightstick if you needed that, the baton, but not a lot of other things. So your use of force was a little bit different than it is now. So, but some things stay the same no matter what you do.
And I was just about to ask about that, your use of force, because, of course, now we have a whole, slew of tools on our tool belt.
Right.
But for you guys, like I said, especially starting out, or for police, law enforcement in general, I should say, starting out back then, you just had, like you said, the 38 revolver, your nightstick, your handcuffs. So what was your use of force like?
Yeah, use of force is, at the beginning it used to be, they used to call it the use of force ladder, which, it always starts with a police officer's presence and then verbal commands and then hands-on techniques, and it goes up from there. Over the years, it changed into like a wheel, because you don't want to, with the ladder use, it kind of got people in the mindset of, I have to start at the bottom and go up. I have to do this, and that's not always the case.
Right.
If a deadly force situation happens, you don't have to go up through the bottom right away if somebody's trying to, to do something to you, to hurt you in a way with a knife or a weapon of some type.
Right.
So, it got away from that, where you're in the middle of the wheel, and whatever level of force you need to use, you use. So we kind of got away from the ladder aspect and went to the wheel, where your use of force continuum,
right.
You're in the middle, and you use whatever force you need to, to effect an arrest or to accomplish what you need to accomplish that day. So that's changed a little bit, but now, like I said, you've added many spokes to the wheel. These guys, they have the pepper spray, you have the taser, you have, and of course, there's. We were talking about the academy, classes in communication and de-escalation and things like that to help you stay basically, hopefully, at the talking version of the wheel, where you just want to, because you being there and talking is a use of force, just being there. But hopefully we can, if we know how to talk to people, we can stay at that part and never have to go to that hands-on and things of that nature. So that's the ultimate goal, where you never want to have to use anything else on the wheel but that. But that doesn't always work out. But that's why we have those type of tools. The radio was a little bit different.
Yeah.
We have now, we got a radio. Everybody carries a radio on their belt. They have a radio in the car. Back then we had what we call the converter comm system. We had a radio on your belt, And when you got in the car, you took that off the belt and put it in a holder, and it would broadcast over the car speaker. The only problem with that is if you got out of the car, you had to take the radio with you. If you left it in the car, you didn't have a radio. So it was better than the groups before me that everybody didn't have a radio. They only had the radio in the car. So once you got out on a call, you were kind of on your own until you got back and talked on the radio. So, safety-wise, things improved greatly, and so I never had to deal with that. But
As any law enforcement officer would tell you, the radio is your lifeline. So that
absolutely,
to be without
if you need help or you need whatever, that's definitely something that's good to have.
and especially in those times where you didn't have a cell phone, like, I left my radio, I can make a phone call.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, now everybody does. Back then, I think it's hard to believe that not everybody's house had a phone. So, even in 1988, not everybody had a phone in their house. Phones were expensive, so people didn't always have a phone.
Yeah.
Because you say, "What's your phone number?" and they go, "You can't. I don't have one, but call my neighbor," and they'd give you a neighbor's phone.
Oh,
so,
wow. Yeah.
So it was a little bit different world, but now you wouldn't. It's hard to imagine.
Right.
30 years ago, not having a phone. Everybody has a phone now. They have 2 or 3 probably.
Yeah.
Most of us have 2 phones at least working here, and then
Right.
you got your office phone and your home phone and your personal phone. So there's phones everywhere. So.
Okay. All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into the technology aspect and how that changed from, of course, back when you started to kind of what it is now. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Crime Solver Show.
This week, Crime Solvers need your help to solve a grand larceny that occurred in Chesterfield County. During the overnight hours of September 12th, an unknown suspect stole the victim's gray Acura MDX from his residence at River Forest Apartments. The vehicle was recovered in the 6000 block of Cricklewood Drive and South Point Landing Apartments. However, numerous items were taken from inside. Some of the items taken include a Kevlar helmet, a complete U.S. Army Class A uniform, and a black leather biker's vest with a patch reading "Riders Don't Play" and a VA rocker patch at the bottom. For more information, visit our Facebook page or our website at crimesolvers.net and hit the Crime of the Week button. If you can help solve this crime, call Crime Solvers at 748-0660 or use the P3 Tips mobile app or website. We guarantee you remain anonymous and you could receive a cash reward. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at CrimeSolversCCH, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Police Specialist Ron Coombs with the Chesterfield County Colonial Heights Crime Solvers program, and this has been your Crime of the Week. Take the time to solve the crime.
And oh my chicken pie, we are back with the second segment of the Crime Solver Show. For those of you listening, we're talking a little bit about how police work has changed over the last 30 years. And in the first segment, we discussed equipment. So going into our second segment, we want to talk about the technology aspect of how police work has changed over the last 30 years. And so I guess we can start with, we were talking about radios.
Right.
So talk a little bit more about that, like how that has changed, and then of course moving on into now having computers in the cars and all that stuff. Because I'm sure that was
the radio has always been a good tool for communication. I mean, when I first started, you would call dispatch on the radio, ask them to check and see if somebody was wanted or somebody was licensed. So you did have that communication. It wasn't fairly easy and easy to do, so it wasn't too strenuous. But now, like you said, with the computers in the car, the PMDC, you can send all that information. You can get pictures. You can have pictures of wanted people. You can have all that right there at your fingertips. You can your maps. That's another great thing that nowadays when you get a call, when dispatch sends you the call, it goes right to your mapping system. It shows you where you're at and then how to get to where you need to go. Back when I first came, you got that glorious black and white map book from Chesterfield County that they gave you for free. Didn't make you pay for it. It was very difficult to read. Most of us back in the old days when you had that map book would go by like the ADC map of Chesterfield County from the 7-Eleven or from wherever, at the time, that's where you got them from. Because those were in color. Now, they're a lot bigger and easier to read. So, but the county map book, it was just very basic, black and white, nothing crazy about it. And your streets would run out on one page and it'd say turn to page like 380. And then you have to turn to page 380 and try to follow where you needed to go. So nowadays with the computer in the car,
why didn't those maps ever go back to back? Like you'd have be on page 12, flip to page 38. How is that going to help me while I'm driving?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a topographer question. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Oh, look at that.
A cartographer is the guy who drew it.
Oh, awesome. Maybe we should have one of those guys on. Have him on. We can ask him because that is. It never. It's like okay. Oh, oh, it's right in the middle of the page, and it's like turn to page 80, and I'm like, I'm on page 30. So you flip to page 80, but it was very difficult to read. But the map books that you get at 7-Eleven were a lot easier, so you got used to that. It wasn't. For me, it was a little harder because I'm not from here. A lot of the guys that were from this location know the streets anyway, but I didn't know any of them except the major ones from going to the academy: Route 10, Route 1, 360, and 60.
Yeah.
Once you got off those, you kind of lost me until I got out and started working the road a little bit. So that's one of the bigger technology as far as that map book goes, because you guys know when the map book goes down on PMDC,
Oh, yeah.
how everybody kind of loses it a little bit.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
they're crying and complaining, and how are we supposed to get calls, and what
Yep.
do we do now?
Yep.
But how am I supposed to remember it? And I'm like, well, see that thing in your shirt there? That's a pin, and you can write down the address of the call on that other little thing, that notebook you have, and then you can look it up. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's really neat. It slows you down, but it's really neat.
Yeah.
But it's funny to compare because I'm sure, officers that were here in the 60s and when I came in the 80s were laughing at me like, you guys don't know how good you got it,
Yeah,
compared to what. So every generation passes it on. Oh, what? I did forget to tell you. We did have a shotgun too.
Oh.
As part of that. Everybody got issued a shotgun. I forgot to mention the
Yeah.
shotgun, but I was sitting here thinking.
Standard
I was like,
equipment.
Standard equipment. It was, everybody was issued that. So we did have that too. But, as far as like the radio is real basic concept, and you could, it's a very needed tool.
Yeah.
Still today. I mean, you can't do anything without successful communication. That's
Yeah.
the way we have to talk to each other. So
Yeah. Yeah, and just a little bit about the change in times. I can speak for Rizzuti because he was here before me, and I know when I was in the academy,
barely.
I received
maybe
a map book as well.
months? Yep.
And one of the things that they would make us do when I was in FTO was a call would come out, and my FTO officer would shut the computer and say, "All right, you need to find this location, using the map book because the computer just went down. How are you going to get to this location?" So
Right.
it taught me. I had to learn really quick how to read a map, because I'm like, well, I could just use my cell phone.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
And so I'm
Yes.
sure Rizzuti probably had the same thing happen to him.
That's right. Just going to throw it out there really quickly for all of you guys wondering. An FTO is a field training officer.
That's right.
That's one of our wonderful acronyms that we love to
That's
use
right.
in any
That's
kind
right.
of form of government work.
Yes.
But that used to happen to me all the time. One of the cool things is I was born on Long Island and I lived there until I was about 11 years old. But and then we've been living here in Chesterfield County ever since. But one of the cool things was, when I was in field training, I knew the area, so I wasn't really too concerned about how am I going to get around. So the cool thing was I was able to impress my field training officers with knowing my way around, because they'd shut the computer on you sometimes and say, "All right, man, so how are you going to get around? The computers just went down. What are you going to do?" So
Yep.
I knew the area. So it was like, I told one of them, I said, I kind of grew up here. He goes, "Oh man, you should have kept that one to yourself."
That's right.
I would have been really impressed that you went out and studied.
Yes, exactly. He's a wonder. He's a wonder.
Yeah, well, for
He's
me,
a phenom.
for me, I got nicknamed.
Well, yeah.
For me, I got nicknamed Garmin, because I was terrible with
the map?
the map on the PMDC. And I actually did better with the actual manual map that I still keep in my car now.
Oh, yeah.
But on the PMDC, my biggest struggle was, if the car was traveling south,
Right.
knowing
Where am I coming or going?
yeah,
Up and down.
yeah, up and down. So my FTO would watch me, as I'd be driving, watch me pass the turn and not say anything, and
Yeah.
then and by the time I look or the map updates, I'm already past the turn. He's like, "Yeah, you were supposed to turn back there."
Yeah, getting yourself oriented to
yeah.
where you're at on the. Am I going up the
Up
screen or down?
down the screen? Yeah, yeah.
So it's a little bit different. It's like I said, it takes some getting used to, no matter what you do. But
So when did they incorporate the computers into the police cars? Because I know, of course, when you started, you didn't have that.
no, I believe the PMDCs we came in the early 2000s. That's when they
Okay.
started going in cars gradually. I believe it was I want to say 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. We started getting those and gradually putting them into cars. And some people may have had them before then. Some people had. You guys, as with anything, usually some people try it out first. They do a trial and it goes, and then we expand it to everybody. But I'd say the early 2000s is when the computer. So you guys started off with them. So
Right.
again, that's one of the things. Like, why was our academy less? Because we didn't have a PMDC class. You guys had a PMDC class. We didn't
class,
have
yeah.
one of those.
Yeah.
We didn't have a taser class. We didn't
Yeah.
have pepper spray. We didn't have any of that. So those are time-consuming things that happen as you go. So
Yeah.
Make it a
Now,
little different.
with the computers in the cars, did you guys find? Excuse me. With the computers in the cars, did you guys find it faster for you guys to make your calls, get to your calls for service? Or, did you not notice
response
a
time
difference?
wise? I don't, because I believe just about everybody that used maps and knew and worked here kind of knew where they were going. I don't think it was a significant increase. When we went to the PMDCs, I wasn't on the road. I was working in the juvenile drug court then, so I don't really know but I don't believe we were like, oh my gosh, look how much faster we're getting to
Right.
these calls.
Yeah.
I don't really think it increased our speeds that much. It didn't go from like we were 15 minutes, now it's 2 or anything like that. So it's still because like you said, some people have a difficulty with a map no matter how they're looking at it. So it's either way you go. I don't think it significantly helped us, as far as that. It did make it, easier in general, but I don't think it greatly, and I'm sure it decreased. It had to. Being able to get the call that way without having to wait for for it to it had to it improved it. I'm
Right.
sure, but I don't believe it was a drastic,
change.
from half an hour to 5 minutes type thing. So
Gotcha.
Yep.
So, lastly, what was communications like within the department itself? Because now we do everything. We have email and other ways of cell phones, whatever,
and the PMDC messages that they can send
and all-
out.
right.
Basically, with us, anytime you came into roll call, we had the shift board that you looked at, and the sergeants would put information on there. We put on keep checks. Those are things that citizens request. I'm going on vacation. Can you guys we still do those today. But then it was put on the board for your beat. So you'd pull off whatever beat you were working, write down the keep checks for your area, write down it was all pretty much paper. People officers still gave out lookouts and things like that as you were working for runaways or robbery suspects or wanted people, things like that. But communication was very much everybody has a little mailbox at whatever station you're assigned to. We still do, but back then it was like you'd get a note in your box, call Mr. Johnson in reference to a vandalism you worked last week, and it'd have his phone number, and they'd put that in. Dispatch would write that in message down and put it in your box. So now we all have a phone number, a voicemail number. We all have an email address, so people can get to us a lot easier. Than they used to be able to. So it's changed quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. But when you're part of it, you don't really notice it as much. I came through all of that, and you don't really notice the drastic difference. But it was so much easier now to get a hold of people.
Yeah, I'd imagine just even doing some of the most mundane things that we do within law enforcement now, of course, through computer. Such as taking reports or
right. Reports were all hand done. Now they're all done on through our RMS system, our records management system. There's our acronyms again.
Acronym again.
But back then it was all done on our reports, offense reports, accident reports, everything done by hand. And that had to get transported to headquarters for the sergeant to check, and so it's a lot different. Things were very much hands-on type work back then,
Gotcha.
as opposed to now.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to take our second and final break before we head into our next segment, which is going to be on police and media relations and how that's changed over the last 30 years. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Crime Solvers Show.
This week, crime solvers need your help to solve a grand larceny that occurred in Chesterfield County. During the overnight hours of September 12th, an unknown suspect stole the victim's gray Acura MDX from his residence at River Forest Apartments. The vehicle was recovered in the 6000 block of Cricklewood Drive and South Point Landing Apartments. However, numerous items were stolen from inside. For more information, visit our Facebook page or our website at crimesolvers.net and hit the Crime of the Week button. If you can help solve this crime, call Crime Solvers at 748-0660 or use P3 Tips mobile app or website. We guarantee you remain anonymous and you could receive a cash reward. Take the time to solve the crime.
All right. We are back for our third and final segment of the Crime Solvers Show. And in this segment, we're going to talk about something, Ron, that can be a little polarizing, adversarial, when it comes to police and media relations. Shouldn't be. But we all know, with the way things are going now in our current society, how all that is unfolding in the media with police.
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about what the relationship was like back when you started and kind of how that has changed over years. I don't know if it was better then than it was now or just different in general.
Well, I mean, like you said, the aspect of media was a little bit different. I mean, back in the day, we had basically press release. We still do press releases, but back then that was basically the only information that TV or unless a TV station went to an actual scene somewhere. But they would, like if there was a robbery somewhere, the sergeant or lieutenant would do a press release with basic information about that robbery, give it to the front desk officer, and there was only one desk at the time. And if we'd have TV, Channel 8 would call and goes, "You guys got anything tonight?" And you would just read them the press release, whatever the press release was. Today, 7 this time, this happened, la da da. And they were like, "Did they got any more on the suspects? Did they got?" And I'll be like, "I have no idea. This is all I have. That's it." And you look at it today, we've got I believe every lieutenant and maybe even more people than that have a Twitter account.
Yes.
So, the lieutenants are, when we go to a robbery, they're shooting out, here's what the suspect is, here's where he was last seen, here's a car. It's a constant communication, and it's a good communication with the news media because they're getting it and they can put it out on their, their radio station if they're in radio, TV station if they're in TV. It's getting the information out quicker to the people that could help you solve things. So I think, but one of the problems you always used to have, or you do still have now, is everybody wants the story, and of course they do. That's their job, to inform people. That's what the media is supposed to do. But you have to be, you don't want to give away too, because you have to keep the integrity of your case together. You
Right.
can't give out every single thing that you've done and where they are. Here's the evidence. You don't want to give out everything. So the people that you're looking for, you don't want to compromise the case. In other
Right.
words, so. But the media, they are a great tool for us because we use them in Crime Solvers. That's
Yes, all the time.
that's our bread and butter, basically. We send radio clips. COVID's kind of slowed us down a little bit different. We
Yeah.
do things differently that everybody does now.
Yeah.
So the COVID thing, but we do our radio spots and then we do our TV spots and things like that. And the media is great as far as helping us solve things. So
Yeah.
it's always but like you said, you don't. The media would like to have everything you have, I'm sure, because
Yeah.
that's a great story to put out. But I've never personally had any issue with anybody in the media as far as coming up and asking for this or trying to sneak into crime scenes or
Yeah.
anything like that. I personally haven't had a problem with any of the guys and the ladies and the gentlemen that work in the media around here are very respectful and kind of do what you ask them to do as far as crime scenes and things like that. I've never had any trouble.
So when they used to do press releases back, when you first started, did the police department have a public relations officer at that point in time?
No,
Or was it-
that's another new. That's a great point. That's a totally new concept. We didn't have anybody that was the official spokesman or the media relations person like we do now. We didn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
We've got so much involved in that now, but back in the day, it was basically a sergeant, a lieutenant, or a captain. Somebody, if they did do a TV interview, it was one of those people that would do it. So so it was very limited. Now we have a person. That's what they do.
Gotcha.
They keep us in contact with the media. So
So if the media didn't respond, this press release, okay, that's going out, we of course you're not sending it out over the internet or anything like we do now,
Yeah.
email, whatever. How would that information be, get given out to media or to the public in general?
They would, basically that's how they would get it. They would have to call and get it from the front desk or from, investigations in the morning. They would always
Okay.
have it available. And I believe it was sent out to like the newspapers and things like that to put in the newspaper. But
Gotcha.
that was, that was pretty much it, so that was how information was done. But if it was a big enough story, usually, to cover it.
So do you remember when, like about the time that we go to this form of having a public relations officer, position to kind of assist with press releases?
Yeah, I would say about the same time, kind of when computers and everything started coming around. Liz Caroon is our
Yes.
public information officer, I believe is what her title is.
Yeah.
But she's probably been here at least that long. I would say somewhere
Okay.
around the mid 2000s. Liz came here. Do you know, Chris? They would cover it. Liz Caroon is our public information officer now. How long do you think she's been here?
I actually have something really funny to show you. Talk.
Oh, okay.
This is for real.
Oh.
This is for real.
Nice.
Hey, Liz, come on in for a second.
Oh, look at that.
She's actually here.
A surprise
Yeah.
guest.
Talking about her right now.
Yes.
A surprise guest.
That's right. We are talking about you on the Crime Solvers podcast right now.
Yay.
Why are you punishing people?
Yeah.
No. Come on in. You can sit in my chair.
Yeah. This is like an impromptu thing. I like
They
it.
had no idea.
I know.
This is good. Yeah.
Neither did Liz.
Yeah.
No, good. So nothing like being on the spot, huh, Liz?
So Liz, to put you on the spot, we were talking about the department going to a public relations officer or having that position compared to when Ron initially started, where it was just a press release given to him by a supervisor, and then that's what the media got read by an officer. When did you come into the police department for public relations?
Well, I started working here back in 2011, but there was actually a public information coordinator before me, and I think she started around 98 or 99.
Okay.
But I think the department saw the value of having that consistent contact for our members of the media and for the members within the department to have a one-stop shop for press releases, advice on staging press conferences, that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay. So we did have somebody before you. Okay.
We did.
Okay. Well, see, she didn't stick in my memory. So.
It's okay. It happens.
And now that you mention it, I think I do remember us having somebody that worked in that position. So
And so now that we've gone to, of course, having a public relations like officer, I know that, like you said, it was initially given to you guys by a supervisor. That's what you guys read to the media.
right.
Did you feel like then, or like, was there any issues back then that you can think of or remember where, like, maybe we felt like we were behind the 8 ball as far as dealing with the media? Maybe a story already being reported, the narrative goes a different way based on the fact that, of course, naturally, like you said, we didn't want to compromise the integrity of an investigation. So we may not give everything that we have to the media. Was there any issues like that back then?
I don't recall there being anything that comes to mind, but I do like what Liz said is great is having a central person.
Yeah.
Because before they would call, like I said, they'd call and they'd get somebody in investigations or somebody on the road, and everybody had something different. So when you had a central person, that gives everybody one person to contact, and that works out so much easier than trying to. Well, before I talked to Sergeant so-and-so, and well, he's off today, and then I talked to so-and-so, and I talked to so it's easier to, like you say, keep it very centrally located. It makes it so much easier.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, we do want to thank Liz for stopping by and totally putting her on the
Liz.
spot. Thank
And
you very much.
actually, I guess right before we ended, I want to say the goal is to try to have Liz actually on the show. You got a little sample of who Liz is, but she has great expertise when it comes to all things media. Not only has she been a media journalist, but she's now been working for the police department. So she's seen the whole media police relationship type of thing evolve from both sides. And so we're going to have her on the show next week so that we can talk about police and media relations, if Liz does not mind joining us. I know we're putting her right on the spot.
That's right.
I am here for you guys, whatever you need.
All
Awesome.
right.
That's
you
awesome.
know, I do want to say before you close out, I think we're really lucky in this
Yeah.
area, especially Central Virginia area, where we do have a really great relationship with our local media. You know, you look at some major cities, other jurisdictions where it seems like it's a little bit of a struggle, but I do think that we are very lucky. You know, we've all been working with the media for a long time, and they never really overstep their boundaries or anything like that. And they've become really good partners with us, at least in the time that I've been here, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, to wrap it up, for the conductor himself, Christopher Rizzuti, my partner in crime, Ron Coombs, a.k.a. Glass, and the man of the hour himself, Elwood Baldwin Jr. here. This is it for the Crime Solver Show for this week. So we will be back next week to massage your eardrums with more Crime Solver Show.
Thank you for listening to The Crime Solver Show. The Crime Solver Show is produced and engineered by Chris Rizzuti and written by Elwood Baldwin, Ron Coombs, and Chris Rizzuti. Our theme song is The Crime Solver Show theme by Chris Rizzuti. Copyright 2020, all rights reserved. Take the time to solve the crime.